So in the resources tab underneath teaching outdoors, there are 10 tips and tricks that we wanted to just go over during this time. And as we're talking about them, if there's something that really resonates with you or something you'd like to add about one of them, please feel free to put it in the chat and we'll bring attention to that.
Okay.
So
the first one that is really important is to know where you're going to go. And I think my janitor is going to come in here and vacuum, so I might have to slip away a second. But
hey, Patty, why don't I start with number 1 and maybe you could tell them not to vacuum and then you can do the evens.
All right, I'll be right back.
Okay, good. All right, so surveying the site ahead of time. Now, it's likely that you are going to go to someplace right on your campus. And so maybe you feel like you really know it well. But something I've found is that I go outside almost every day, and I'll notice even after a weekend or if there's been a storm or something, sometimes I'll have to wait and not go out with my students until I've double checked things and make sure that like there aren't trees that are starting to come down or that I would be afraid of, or you know, something hasn't happened. So I do check the site regularly, even though I'm out there quite a bit. But also, if it's your first time and you're just starting to try and think about a plan, then you could start to think like, where would be a good place where at different times of the day it's comfortable for the students. So the sun isn't in their eyes, or it's not too hot, or it wouldn't be too cold. You have maybe good shelter. If it's going to be like a particular learning classroom. And then of course, you know, different hazards like, is there some kind of construction nearby or whatever? I mean, you understand all that. But in regards to bathrooms and things, I know that there's a question about little ones and bathrooms in the sign up, and considering that. And I think that Patty had some great tips about young kids and bathrooms.
Okay, my turn?
Yeah, but I thought maybe you could answer that quickly before you go to number 2.
Yeah, well, I even though I teach 6th grade, I have worked with kindergarten. We've partnered up before. That's one of the things that has worked really well, is that when you go out as a kindergarten group or 1st grade, if you can partner with an older group, that really works well. You have that extra teacher with you, and you also have older kids that could help out. But I start out very small, like you go out for a very small amount of time, and you know, you make sure that the potty break is done before you go, which is just probably what you do for recess too. You know, you just make sure they go ahead of time. But they get used to being outside for class, and it's different than being outside for recess. And so I guess with kindergartners, even with my kids, I don't go so far away that they can't get back to a bathroom. Okay.
So number 2, preparing students for the outdoors.
Okay, so I think every situation is different, and you have to be conscious of what your kids are used to. Some kids obviously only want to go out when it's nice, and some teachers only want to go out when it's nice. So I tend to make my plans and then look at the weather, and or if there's a certain lesson that I have to do when it's raining because we're doing stormwater runoff, then I make sure that I communicate with the parents, like they will be outside. They do need to dress for the weather. They maybe need extra clothes with them that day, and just make sure they have those types of things, or at least you have said it as many times as you can to make sure that everybody knows. I try to have a few extra things here at school if something does happen, and they need to, you know, change, or they don't have boots or whatever. But my kids know that once we're outside, if they don't bring all the things that I've, you know, prepared them ahead of time to bring, there's no going back in for it. So if it's always a function before fashion type of day. I I think it's really important too, especially with younger kids, that you do inform parents and let them know that you're going to be outside because of the weather. Like I've been outside when it's really pouring rain and the kids know that's what we're going to do. And then there's been times where we planned on going out and it's got, backed up a little bit and I've had to make it another day. So I have to just keep informing them. The weather makes a big difference. If your kids are not used to being outside, you can switch your plans, then it is nice and easy to be able to do that. I have 3 different classes I see every day. And so I have a little bit of wiggle room, but Michigan's weather changes every day. So if you are planning on something that you need a certain weather for and you watch it, you just have to do what you can to make sure you're out there. But I think having extra gear yourself as a teacher, also they know that I dress to go outside. And so it's not about fashion for me either. And so I just keep really reinforcing that. That's probably the biggest thing about being prepared, that you can do is just communicate it.
Yeah, and a couple people were writing in the chat about medicines and emergency binders and whatnot, and that was great information. I'm sure you saw. Also, if your school has an extra EpiPen, if you have that with you, because there might be a situation with a student who didn't know they were allergic to bees or something, and an emergency happens. So number 3 is setting clear expectations, and you can see on the screen there is the picture of some words. When we remain outside, I will remain, or when we're outside, I'll remain in the boundaries and yada, yada. And that's part of my outdoor contract. I have noticed teaching middle school students that it's very important for me to be clear about my expectations from the beginning of the semester. And I introduce them a little bit at a time because, that first day of class, if all I'm doing is going over how all the expectations, and it's just a horrible day. But I definitely feel that I've had better success since implementing this contract. And then I'll just remind them, like if I know what we're headed out to do and that they're going to have a lot of unstructured time or the ability to go farther, they're not right next to me, then I maybe will remind them of this one. And so I, will put that up on my board and discuss it before we go out. Also, we can sometimes assume or just forget that they don't necessarily know how to use tools, even if we think it's really simple. So like a rake and a shovel and whatnot, depending on their age, but definitely my middle school students, they break everything. And so I try to help them see first how to be successful with it. And then one of my pieces in the contract is that I will use it for what it's made for and what the reason that we have that tool with us. I definitely share with them where to be within the physical boundaries. I'll show them, don't go past here or don't go past there before we start. Because when I don't, that's when I find that I've had problems. So clear expectations are important. Go ahead, Patty.
Yeah, Leah, I think one of the most important things for people to do in this area is to remember that going outside is just an extension of your classroom. Mm-hmm. You're not going out for recess. So whatever expectations you have for behavior in the classroom are the same ones that you have when you go outside. Mm-hmm. I can lead them around the building and we go out into the woods and then I make them stop and do exactly what you just said, is give them, you cannot go past here, past here, past here. If you can't see me and I can't see you, you're too far, you have to come back. Mm-hmm. I set the expectation of, even though we're outside, we need to be quiet or we're going to miss things. And so you need to be quiet. And I think with being outside too, it's a little different because they want to touch everything and you got to make sure that they understand that you leave it the way you found it. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so going on, I know this probably sounds pretty easy, but having materials ready to grab and go. So on the screen is my cart that I use. And if I know we're planting, I put everything in there in the morning. And so that when we walk outside, we're just grabbing that and going. And I'll be honest, I didn't always do this. And I found like I was, losing so much time just trying to get my stuff together with them. And okay, everybody grab a rake. Well, that takes so much time that I didn't really realize until I just did it in the morning and got it together. Or if I know I'm going out the next day, we get it together the night before, with some kids, and then it's just ready to go. But with that, and then some things that the kids need, you want it to be all grab and go. So if you need to have some extra backpacks or those little cinch bags that have in there clipboards and pencils and whatever you're going to use that day, field guides if you're going to be looking up stuff, or magnifying glasses, or whatever the case may be, that if they're all there, possibly numbered, so the kid knows their number and they just go. And then when they get back, they're responsible for making sure everything's in there and ready for your next class. Another thing is a first aid kit, because you don't know what's going to happen, because sometimes things do happen. The other thing is if your school has a walkie-talkie, or if you have to bring your cell phone, to make sure you have that with you. Because I will confess, I have walked out a few times and not had those things with me. And luckily nothing's happened, but you just never know. You want to be over prepared all the time for everything. And I think it's really good for the kids to see that you are over prepared, so that they come prepared every time also. But just make sure that everything is easy for you, and that maybe you can have a space in your room or with a big tote where here's all our stuff and you just take it out with you. So.
Yeah, and also just being ready to grab and go is part of number 5, making it a routine. Because if it's a routine for you, then you can, and it's easy because you've got all your things together, then you can make it a routine for the students too, by going outdoors often. Or even if you're starting, I know we have a Groundswell teacher who starts their elementary day outside and just circles everyone up before they've come in and taken off their gear. They circle up and discuss, basically have their morning meeting right there, looking at observing the weather and lots of things that are observable together outside. So that's a routine, just starting the day that way. But not using the outdoors as a reward and punishment really helps them to see that it's about their education and learning, and placing value there. And also, like, the office just knows that if they call my classroom and I'm not here, then we're outside, and then we have walkie-talkies and cell phones. So that's our routine.
Yeah, I would just want to add to that too, is a lot of people do writing and stuff outside, and the kids have their spot that they go to. So making it routine where they know exactly where they're going to go. So they're not trying to find something different all the time. So mine is probably the easiest one, and just keep it simple. You can see the picture is actually my kids on the bus parking lot. We're doing a biodiversity study, and it was one of the first times I took them out. And so I chose to do that just to say, look, here's your area between this line and this line, and don't go any farther, and you have to still be spread out and everything. But just keeping it very simple. They did that, and then they moved over to another area right next to the bus parking area. So it was very easy for me to monitor everybody. I think I had 26 kids or something. So monitoring them at that point was very easy. I could correct any behavior at that time that wasn't what I wanted for outdoor learning, so that they get used to the fact that when we're outside, the same rules apply as if we're inside. And I think that's one of the big things that you have to really focus in when you first start taking kids out is that what happens outside is the same as what happens inside. And keeping those times kind of small at first, so they want more. It's almost like that, just give them a little bit and then they want more, but it also helps you be able to monitor and keep track of what you're doing. And then, you have the bathroom breaks that at first they're not used to doing. And so just really keeping it easy for yourself when you're first taking kids out. Don't go out with some big, huge plan and a big, huge idea the first time you take kids out. So.
And Patty, you mentioned something about your class of 26 students, which reminded me, we had a question of what is the appropriate student to teacher ratio for going outside. And at middle school, I can tell you there is no perfect number. It really depends on how I've set up my classroom management, how my students, what they know to expect of me. And then also knowing that sometimes you have like really knowing your students and knowing which ones might be, high flyers, difficult in an outdoor situation. So for example, there was a semester when I had a class of, it was about 26 for most of the hour, but just for part of it, I only had like 8, but they just so happened to be the 8 most difficult. And so it was sometimes more difficult for me when I only had the 8 than when I had the 26, because there were so many, with 26, there were so many students doing what I expected of them. And when they were only 8 and they happened to be all the 8 who wouldn't follow directions very well and such. So my main point there is just that it's, I've had 34 students in a class and it's gone very well. That's not my ideal number, but I just don't know how to answer that. But I wanted to address that a lot of things play into it.
Yeah.
And when we've done any special projects, the few times when I have had adults there to help, that's been amazing. But yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I have had a lot of kids, and I've had a few kids, and it really hasn't made a difference in how they are, because it all goes back to how you set it up ahead of time. And even when I partnered with my friend, that's the kindergarten teacher, so then it was, I had 24, she had 24. So you're looking at 48 kids outside, but it worked out so well because we got the kids together a few times before, and we were in different districts. So it wasn't even like they knew each other. And just my 6th graders wanting to help, it worked out perfectly. Like the teacher and I kind of just sat back and monitored, and we're just amazed at what was going on. So.
And when you're outside modeling the behavior that you want to see, I want them to find wonder and awe in their outdoor experience. And so when I notice something, I stop and I get excited and I'm happy to share, even if we're talking about something else. And then I noticed in the Jamboard that someone said they watched an insect for 5 minutes once with their students. That is really cool. And just helping to model how you can be outdoors, not just like running around hitting things with sticks and, things that kids like to do, but just helping them see how can you like interact with the natural world and observe and be in a really lovely way. So
I agree with that. If I can add to that, Leah, like when I take my kids out, you can see like he's in a parking lot with a magnifying glass trying to see different organisms. And even that, they were so excited to show me every little thing that they found. And I would go, like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen that, it's so great. And then when we move over to something else, just like every little thing they found was so exciting. And to take those moments as something that you can teach from is just something your kids will never forget. I also had a time I was taking the kids up to the the woods behind our school, and they were being so loud. And I'm like, you guys, you gotta be quiet. There's a deer right there. And okay, I was totally lying. It was horrible, teacher moment right there. But then I got really lucky and a buck showed up. So it was so cool because once they were quiet, like there actually was a buck. And we took time just to sit there and watch that. And then the next class had heard about it. So they didn't say a peep because they wanted to see if the buck would come back. So really just taking those moments, like you said, and using those as those teachable times is really what is going outside is all about. And then keeping their attention, much like what you would do inside. If you're doing something like if you do the countdown, we do a lot of circling up outside so that I can see everybody. They can see me. Make sure that my eyes are the ones in the sun and not theirs, because I don't complain about it and they will. And always like a toes towards me wherever I'm at. If they're not in a circle up position, like if you're looking at your toes are towards me, then I know their body has to be towards me. So anything too that you can do to avoid distractions, which is a little bit hard outside sometimes, but the kids get really used to it. And they also know that if there is distractions of something that's really cool, you're going to take the time to investigate it with them. The one thing that I just wanted to say too is that there's been so many things that we have broken off and looked at, and I am not an expert in everything outside. So that's really cool to keep their attention. Is like they can write it down, they can draw it real quick, and then we can come back into the classroom and look and see what it is if we don't have that information. So
and the ninth tip, looking for opportunities. One thing I saw a lot of as we were typing on the Jamboard was taking this opportunity during COVID to have students get outside and have a chance to really breathe, have a mask break, move, stretch, and they absolutely need it. We are just our traditional classrooms of students being sitting most of the day, and really it's so good for our brains to get outside and move and just notice something in nature that helps to reset us and help us get to a refresher. So yeah.
And then again, accountability, because it is like your classroom. You're not just outside to play. And so there's a picture of the ecosystem scavenger hunt I do. So while they're outside, they are sketching, they are coloring. They need to come back with that. And if they don't finish that, I had them finish it at home in their own outside space. So I knew they at least had to go outdoors again. You can have your kids journaling while they're out there, do exit tickets. We do a lot of taking pictures of stuff. I do it with the kids. I take pictures for them. Just anything, like think about what you would do in class for this particular assignment. You can still do it outside or with outside. Forget it. Lost my train of thought. Been a long day. So.
But yeah, just in closing on that, I found personally with my middle school students that if I have any little thing to keep them accountable, they will then complete the target or the objective, the expectation that I have for them outside. Otherwise, they tend to, get together and chat, some of them. And so I absolutely have to have something for them to be doing. And they have points associated for their day on attaining that target as well. So we'd like to take a look at the Jamboard a moment. And so thank you, Joanna, for pulling that up. And we'd like this to be an open conversation and kind of an open brainstorm, especially this first one about what obstacles are preventing you from taking students outside. And one question that had come in was about, this is prior to the Jamboard when we signed up, was where some teachers felt their administrators were not completely on board with them taking students outside, or how do you get them on board and whatnot. And I would love, if that isn't on here, I'd love some conversation about that if you have an idea, but also if you are taking your students outside and you just want them to support you, I would have you invite them to come with you, because once they see the students learning in that excited way and get to see students who maybe you wouldn't expect, or you don't see traditionally in your classroom having great behavior, but they're doing well outside. That's powerful for an administrator to see.
Yeah, Leah, I would just add, I'm really lucky. I have an administrator that loves what I'm doing, loves that I take kids outside. You know, for those that have to worry about test scores with everything, mine are some of the best, just from those having some of those experiences and not just doing the same everyday thing. So you're really teaching them how to think while you're outside. So do you want to look at questions on the Jamboard, or we?
Yeah, I see one about virtual learning, and they're not taking their students out because the students are doing virtual learning. And I'm wondering if anyone has ideas for having your students go outside during virtual or hybrid situations, hybrid being like when they're at home on that remote day. Something I just did, I had a new class of students this semester, beginning of January, and I had taught them some things about bird habitat and like what's important for birds. And so then on their remote day, I asked them to make a Flipgrid video for me of their surroundings or a place they know well. It doesn't have to be their house, their yard, but it could be any place they know well. And tell me, do an assessment. Are there things there that are positive for bird habitat, or are there things that could be better bird habitat, or things that are negative toward it, whatever. So they sent that Flipgrid to me, and that was good virtual experience. So we learned about it here at school, then they applied it at home. But I wonder if anyone has something. Oh, Kelly says with her virtual kinders, she would assign them to go and collect 5 things and then take a picture. Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's super. And I don't know if anyone has done those scavenger hunts of other things like in your house on Zoom, but that would be great. They could bring back 5 pictures. Or Outdoor Discovery Center did a backyard crusade. Nice. Thank you for putting that in the chat, Sally, that link. And the other thing about the not knowing what space the students have access to, that is something like, I don't know your age level, but I had asked them, I have a form, like a getting to know you form. And so I've asked them, like, what do you have? Is it mostly, pavement, or are there trees? Are you near a river, a lake? And they can check all these things. So then I kind of have a sense of what nature spaces students have right at their house.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Just to see what they have for outside. Okay, so currently just not being with them in the building when at school, I try to get them out at least once a week. Yeah. Are a lot of people still virtual?
Can read poetry under a tree. I'm virtual, and we did read aloud about crows, and then I asked them to take a crow hike with family to spot crows. That's awesome. And you can probably spot a crow in any wherever you live, whether you live in a city or the country, probably. Okay.
Can we just open it to just in general, like if you guys unmute and want to talk, like some of you that are, would anybody want to share, like why they're having a hard time going outside? Anything specific that you want us to talk about, or that maybe somebody on here can help talk about? Is there anybody that wants to unmute and go ahead? Okay.
I'll go. So I teach in an EI self-contained classroom, and we don't always have like proper staff coverage, and some of our kids have a history of eloping. So I know going outside is something they're really interested, I'm really interested in, but there are a lot of just obstacles in the way of like admin and other people telling us it's not safe, even though times that I've taken them outside, sometimes their behavior has been safer because they're actually engaged in what we're doing more. So I
Right.
guess I'm wondering if anyone else has been in that situation. I know it's a very specific demographic of kids. Or if you guys know any like, workarounds to that to get more adults in the building on board.
Yeah, Caitlin, is this you?
Yeah.
Okay, so I will say that a few years ago, I had a really difficult class where half of them were like considered EI or some other label that we give them, but I had kids that ran away all the time and would physically leave my room and just run out the door and run, and they were in some neighborhood, when we found them. But when I took them outside for learning, I think a lot of that went away from them, that need to like escape went away, and just kind of that time to be able to breathe. And so maybe you could start with having an administrator or someone going out with you, that they can see that, the kids do really act better outside. So do you have any exact problems that you have when you go outside, or is it just that they don't want you to go out?
It's because we are close to some busy streets. They're not super close, but we're right by the Plaster Creek Park, and we have Kalamazoo and 28th Street right there.
Mhm.
And we did have a really bad experience with a student eloping from campus last year and trying to run into traffic. So I think it's just the fear of that like recent traumatic event mostly, but
Right.
I think that would be good. And there are days we have a social work intern at our school who could possibly do behavior data. So we actually have like numbers. I feel like numbers make a big difference in a lot of cases. So.
Yeah. Well, if I were you, I would plan my days that I go outside for when that extra adult could be with you. And because if a kid's like for me, if a kid's gonna leave, they're gonna leave from my classroom or from being outside. And I don't know, does being outside trigger more for him or her?
No, they usually do better outside.
Yeah.
So it's ironic to me that, there's so much hesitation.
Right. Maybe they need to be able to look at other schools or other classrooms that have been successful. And maybe for you, it's just a matter of time to kind of forget your experience. So, but I just know that I've never had a problem like that with a kid that I've been outside with, but I have had those problems with the same kid inside the building. So.
Something I noticed in the pink stickies, the cultural factors where you've heard students say nature is for white people and students don't always feel comfortable outside, depending on how they spend their time outside of school. And one thing I just wanted to address, oh yeah, that's great. Start the other way, bringing nature inside. Thank you for saying that, Kelly. And one thing I've noticed is I follow a lot of people on Twitter who are they're Black, Indigenous, or people of color, and I bring those into my classroom. And so the people that I'm following are ones who are either experts in a field that fits with my curriculum, so basically they're birders or herbologists, or they study fish, or things like that. Or so I will take like tweets that they've put out and show those, like, and start my class with that. Or a lot of them will make videos, or they'll maybe make a TikTok video or something. So I'll start the hour with that, just to show students that there are people out, like, and once you start following people that, you know, like, I'm obviously a white female. When I start following other people who are not white females, I'm getting a lot of fantastic people that I can share, like, as mentors with my students, or as role models for careers that they might not have expected to see someone who looks like them. And so, yeah, that's just like a little thing that I do. I can't say that that would fix that problem, but I'm showing it every day to help them see that there are people doing all this fantastic stuff and they might look just like them.
And I would add on that too, is that's why you're taking them outside, like, so they all do have those experiences. I had a student this year I took outside, and when we got up in the woods, he's like, "This is Dolly, this is the first time I've ever been in the woods." And I was like, "Really? Okay." And he's like, I go, "You don't have any, you know," and he's like, "Nope, never been in the woods." And I thought, okay, this is why I'm taking you outside, because you too should have to experience this or want to experience it. So, you know, it's those things. And when you hear comments like that, maybe, I'm not sure which students it's coming from, but it could be just because they're intimidated to go out and haven't done it before.
And also I totally understand. I was reading the one about the kids found it distracting and prefer to be in the classroom. And then also the teacher felt like, oh, I've got all this stuff to lug. And I do understand when it feels sometimes just overwhelming, especially during COVID and all. There's been so much change and newness and things that starting out can feel like one more thing, and it can just feel overwhelming. So definitely, you know, take it slow, just do something little at a time, and or maybe give yourself permission to wait a little bit, get some more like stories under your belt of other people doing things that are working out, and before you try it again.
Yeah, I like this one with cold weather, and high schoolers don't always dress for it. Yep, sixth graders don't either, because they're way too cool to wear pants in the winter. And but again, I think it goes back to that. Okay, we've told you on Tuesdays, every Tuesday, we're going outside unless, you know, the weather's so bad, but they know. And it's, again, you just kind of go with, okay, you know, we're going out. And if you don't come prepared, you know, I'm always like, I'm not your mom. I'm not carrying your coat for you. I'm not carrying your boots for you. That's on you. So, you know, again, it's like, I'm not your mom, so I'm not going to bring your coat for you. You have to do that. And if it's either a schedule thing, or you kind of just have to let it go and know that if they're not prepared at that age, like they are in high school, and they'll survive. You're not going to take them out when it's, you know, 30 below. So yeah, we can go to the next slide, I think.
I'd like to just take like 30 seconds to give everyone a minute to read these posties and have some good feels. This is wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing the things that you love about taking students outside. And go to the next slide.
And I would say, if you have not yet taken your kids outside, here is why you should. this is your board of,
Yeah.
you know, your why you should, and maybe this is what you need to share with people that don't think you should go outside with kids.
There was a question or comment on one about curriculum and like, you know, feeling like there's so much to do. Well, there is. It's not just your feeling,
Right.
but feeling there's so much to do. How can we possibly get outside? And I'm wondering if there are people who can address how they meet curricular needs and with their outdoor learning, so that they're not using one more thing, but they're using something from outside to meet the curricular need.
Is there anybody that wants to share with us?
Patty, when you had your students looking for things out on the asphalt, what type of lesson was that?
We were actually just talking about biodiversity.
And is biodiversity a standard?
Yeah, absolutely. So I look at what my standards are and then how I can teach those outside versus what I want to teach outside, and then see if it fits into my curriculum. Sometimes it may be just observation skills, you know, teaching qualitative and quantitative. Well, you teach those in your classroom. There's no reason you can't adjust that and make it outside. You know, sometimes it might just be a lesson on cooperating and you know, how do we do that outside versus inside, or following directions, or something very easy like we did a watershed, a water runoff lesson, and that's when we went around the building just to see how our water runs off our property and how it affects the environment around us. So I don't think there's a lot that you can't make go outside. Like you can do math outside, you can do writing outside, science, social studies. I mean, there's almost anything that I would do inside, I could find a way to do it outside. Wheels to woods.
And speaking of math, I am not, I don't teach math and I don't teach it outside. However, there was a Groundswell workshop one summer about that topic and giving ideas for people on many different grade levels of teaching math outdoors. And so the one big plug I'd like to say for people who might just be newer to this is definitely connecting with the Groundswell staff and, you know, getting on their mailing list and they're always asking, what do you need? Like, what types of workshops do you need to see? And so if you're letting them know that, then that's something that they can bring up and run again, because it's been a few years since we had that experience. And I'm sure that there are new people who would love to know more about how to connect outdoor experiences with their math curriculum.
Yeah, I think the best thing about doing it with math is you cover that, when will I ever use this, or why do I need to know this, in a different way. So that's what helps me. All right, what else are we on?
Well, I'm looking down at just about the wrap up, but oh, strategies. Oh, we already said that. Someone had a couple times it's come up about students' clothing, you know, and like, do they students don't have gear yet to wear outside or something, and it does take a while sometimes to accumulate those things. But if you're in a classroom where you feel like, I know I'm just not going to be able to get all my students to have things, I have always told the secretaries that in our building, like the day before you're going to take things from the Lost and Found to donate, please let me come and look at it. And then I'll do things like take boots and gloves and hats and things, and then just keep those in my classroom, and well, coats too. I've also like for my information that goes to parents, I say like, how can you help? And then I'll say, well, there are certain things that we would love to have if you're donated. If you're getting rid of these things, then please, rather than donate them someplace else, consider donating them to our classroom. And even students, like they'll come in with really nice shoes and they don't want to bring boots to school or wear boots. So they often will wear my boots so that they don't get their nice shoes dirty and things. So it's just one way to access that.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the questions that we had from the registration, and I think a lot of them we have tried to cover. Does anybody have any from today or from the jam boards or questions that you thought of after you registered that they'd like to share with us? And you can just go ahead and unmute and start talking, because there's a lot of people. I can't see everybody. I want to make sure that you leave here with questions answered, or if there's anything that we can do to help you.
I saw one person on one of the jam boards has an outdoor space like woods that they want to get people outside too. That's exciting. I hope that works out for you. Get out there, just try it. Just have them walk around and see what's there one day.
So Caitlin, I see that you're asking about ways to teach math outside. What grade do you teach? Elementary, okay. Because I know for me, like this is the first year I haven't taught math in a while, or yeah, I've been teaching math for a while, so this is the first year I haven't taught it. And so a lot of things that we would do normally in the classroom, like even looking at angles, I go outside and do. Anything with measurement, I can do outside. And I can't think of all my lessons that I would do like right off the top of my head right now, but I feel like there is, there's just so much. I don't know. I don't even know where to start with that. Does anybody have any like specifics that they can share? I feel like I'm out of the math realm this year. My brain's not going there. Yeah, I mean, just think about like what you already teach, and like if they're going to measure something in the classroom, they can measure it outside. You know, distance is really easy to do outside. What were you talking about the other day? I think it was Jessica was talking about something with buildings with like snowballs or something, and measuring circumference and learning how to do that.
And a couple people just added in the chat, shape hunts, 2D and 3D shapes, and then also the wild math curriculum. So thanks for adding those ideas.
Yeah. Kind of just takes a little bit of thinking outside the box.
Yeah, Kathleen, you talked about the poison ivy, and I have that too. And just like you said, you know, there are certain times of the year, like most of the great time you want to be out, the poison ivy is there with you. Spring, I can usually avoid it too, because it doesn't emerge until a little bit later. But I definitely think if you can get your facilities involved and do some spraying, if you could, since you've got such little students. At middle school, I teach my students how to look for it and and such. But and fall makes it, or excuse me, Sue makes a great comment that fall is the time to spray it because it'll bring that poison down into its roots. But yeah, with little kids it is harder. But do empower them to know what it is. And my very favorite, I'll put this in the chat place for learning about poison ivy, is poison-ivy.org.
And I like all the things that you guys are putting in about math too, like species inventories and different kinds of graphs. You know, especially if you can work with another teacher that might teach a different subject, or if you teach multiple subjects, trying to incorporate those into one thing going outside. That's great. Made it so much of the space inaccessible. Huh. That's weird that they wouldn't want you to get rid of it. Get a goat.
Yeah, so I'll put that. There is a Roundup that says it's for poison ivy, and that works pretty well. But one thing that's good in that is I can't think of the word. It's whatever it is that keeps it on the leaves.
That might be one of those things though too that goes with, you know, surveying your areas. You need to know what's out there and when, and you know, maybe it's something that if there's an area that you want to use, you know, you have to go out there and take care of that ahead of time if they're not going to do it for you. So, okay, does anybody else have any other questions?
And also, you know, respecting. So the thing I love about poison ivy is it really helps us to have good respect for the land, because you can't just, you know, everybody wants to just run in and be like, I own this joint, and the poison ivy is going to keep you from that. So there are good lessons to learn, and it's very good for wildlife, and it's beautiful. So so I'm really not about like killing it willy-nilly, but if there are certain places that you just can't walk or can't sit or something.
Yeah. Do any of you that go outside have any tips that you want to share with everybody else? Anything else that's really worked well for you? You can write it in the chat. You can unmute and talk to us. And that would work.
If you want to get out in the winter, like this, all this light dusting of snow we've been having shows up tracks really beautifully. So you can do some tracking. There are lots of things online that just you can print off that show different animal tracks, and in the Midwest, and a lot of them are urban ones. So we're able to see, like, you know, raccoons and opossums and squirrels and rabbits and stuff. That's fun right now.
That's a good idea.
Internet is unsteady.
Hey, Leah and Patty, I'm just noticing in this Jamboard that a couple teachers have mentioned that they tried taking students out earlier in the year and it didn't end up working out. Do you have any suggestions for teachers who might want to try again, or when and how they should try again with their classroom or with another class?
Well, I guess the first question would be like why it didn't work out, because if it's, you know, students aren't used to going out, you really have to, like we said earlier, is start slow, because kids are normally used to going out as recess, and you really have to set those boundaries and start slow, like go out just for maybe even 15 minutes. And I know it might seem like it's taking you longer to get them ready and to go out than you're actually spending out there. but you really do get the benefits of starting slow and teaching them what you want them to know about being outside, versus just going in it and having some like a catastrophe actually, or something that's not what you wanted, so that you get frustrated. So again, just start slow, even if it's just a 10-minute walk to say, show me 3 things you noticed, and then do the same walk another day and go, okay, what are 3 things that have changed in the same place that we went? And just getting those observation skills, but just start slow. Leah, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. And your walk made me think I've also done like mindfulness walks before, and that's hard with middle school to have them not be quiet. Usually like give them a candy cane or something. But anyway, oh, I love that idea of attaching it to recess and doing it at the end, like let them go play and then come in, or then do your outdoor stuff. That's great. Oh,
Yeah.
no, the opposite of what you wrote. I'm so sorry, Kelly. I would do the recess first, then you're teaching personally, but I don't teach elementary, but I think it's like they're just gonna be antsy and want to go play.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like, let them play, and then you bring them all back, give them what you're going to do, and then they'll go do it. So, and Garth, I like that, the plastic bins. Yeah,
Yeah.
you have to think about weather too. So plastic is perfect for them to carry it. I use actually clipboards and big Ziploc bags that the clipboards can go in, and then they can put their pencils and paper and any coloring tools they need right in there too. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a great idea. You don't have to think about extra seats, and they can sit on the ground if they prefer and use it as a hard writing surface. That's really nice.
You know, that also brings up with using it as a seat, like people always talk about bringing their kids out and then their kids don't want to sit on the ground. And just, you know, a little tip, I use a cut up like camping mat, and people have had, you know, yoga mats that they've used that they've cut up too. So just anything, you know, that they can just put their bottom on and they don't get all dirty. So
So some other suggestions, I have had students like even just do brainstorming and things outside. I feel like getting out helps us to be able to just kind of reset our brains. And so we've gone outside, and then I've, had them talk in a group, now move to this group and different things like that. So it's not really ELA or social studies, but just idea gathering, and absolutely reading to your students, read alouds if you do that. Sitting outside and reading, of course they are going to pick at grass probably because but it's just a beautiful time, and they'll settle in as you go.
I think the language arts, like just the whole writing piece, is the easiest thing to do outside, because just being outside gives you so many things to write about. Just have them pick one thing and just really focus in on it. It could be a branch on a tree, and then once they start thinking about it, they will come up with so many other ideas. Or have them just write lists of everything they see and hear and smell and not taste. And that alone will give them things to start writing about.
And social studies, especially if you're using place-based learning principles, there are a lot of elements that connect to civics and social studies. And that your place in your community.
Mhm.
That and some of it might not be going outside, but a lot of it will. You know, who was at that space prior to you in your school, or and also stewardship. You know, whether it's picking up litter or finding, you know, places that you can add in native plants, or identify and remove invasive plants, all of those things. You know, that's more project oriented, but those can be really impactful opportunities for students, even if it's just small. We just get out today, we're going to go clean up, or tomorrow we're going to get all the ice off of the catch basins so that the water flows better through them. And that might feel like one more thing, but it's a really good service to your school.
I remember a really cool project that Forest Hills teachers did. I can't remember who it was, but they collected native seeds, and then the art teacher worked with the science teacher, and they went out into nature and observed the plant's life cycle, and then they drew the plant, and then they made presses, the linoleum press blocks, and then they sold the seeds at the end of the year. And students pressed, you know, the plant on the one side, and then they had to write what, you know, the information about the plant on the other. Oh, was that you, Leah?
It was not me, but I wasn't in the classroom at that time, and I facilitated the artist who worked with Dolores Keeley, biology. It was a 9th grade biology class with an art class, and then we brought in an artist. Yeah, it was really cool.
Like, I still remember that. It was so awesome because
Yeah.
like it was art, language arts, and
Yeah.
science. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Joanna, I'm sure it's getting time for wrap up, and I know that somebody wants to maybe talk a little bit more about Groundswell. So we want to give you time for that.
Hey, yes, that would be me.
Jessica, okay, thanks.
Thanks so much, Patty and Leah. I know it's not always easy to open up your teaching methods and display what you do in front of an audience open like this. So we really appreciate your being willing to do that. And so thanks to you both for that part and for the planning behind it. As you have heard a little bit throughout the evening, one of the threads that connects us, our teachers, our administrators, is the Groundswell community. We'd love you to take the chance to get to know us and what we can offer at some time in the near future. So I know we're going to be sharing some links, but please check out our website, Groundswell. I'm sorry, it's gvsu.edu/Groundswell. There is a wealth of information and resources, not only about what Groundswell does, but just resources for teachers that want to do what you guys do. That's get outdoors, make the educational experience more meaningful and impactful, and definitely even talk about stewardship and how to incorporate that into your education experience with your students. So we like to think of ourselves as a supportive community of teachers and also community partners who are also educators. So definitely look through the website. There are lessons that have been developed and vetted from teachers. Some of them are here in this room, so to speak, that have actually tested the lessons that we've developed and put on our website. And we've also had some great videos for those of you that are doing the virtual learning experience too. We have not forgotten about you, and we have resources there as well that can help support you. To get more involved in the Groundswell network, make sure that you sign up to be on our mailing list. I believe Joanna put that link in the chat already. That way you'll get the first opportunity to hear about our events. This event in particular was Teaching Outdoors and was brought to you through a partnership from the Charter Schools Office of Grand Valley. So we appreciate their partnership on this. And it was also funded by the MySTEM Network, who we do a lot of work with supporting STEM education in the classroom. If you're interested in taking on a classroom project, perhaps yourself, whether it's something little, something or something more grand, Groundswell does have funds available for teachers and school educators or anyone who would like to form a team from a school. And if you go to our website, you can take a look and see opportunities to get some of your ideas funded. So if you don't have clipboards and you don't have tubs to store things in and you don't know where those resources could come from, Groundswell, part of our reason to be here is to help pull those resources together for our teachers that work with us. So definitely, if you've considered doing more with place-based education, doing more with using your community in your yard, in your spaces as a classroom, rather than just digging through the textbooks, we want to be there to support this, this effort with you guys. Let's see. So that is the overview on Groundswell. I'd be happy to answer any questions about Groundswell, the work we do. We are working currently with, I believe we have 7 school districts and several private schools that work with Groundswell right now, all over the Kent ISD, Ottawa ISD, GRPS. I know I see some of you friends here as well. We've got some work that we've been doing with you all. So just consider us a resource and be sure and reach out if you have any questions regarding Groundswell. And yeah, I'll open it up for one more time for questions to either Patty, Leah about teaching outdoors, or myself.
I just want to say, if you are thinking about going outside and maybe doing any kind of projects out there, really take Groundswell as a partner, and they can make your life a lot easier going outside. You're not on your own that way. And I think that makes all the difference. So.
Just to mention, it used to be more of a, you know, oh, I need money for field trips and things like that. The days have changed and your needs have changed. So so every year we look to support new projects in the new directions you end up going with your curriculum. So be sure and check it out.
I did put it in chat, but I would like to kind of point out also that we are in West Michigan. However, all of our PDAs are open to anybody statewide. If you are outside of our direct service region, as far as like for funding of school projects, we are part of the Great Lakes Stewardship Initiative, and there are hubs around the state of Michigan that are, you know, work with schools all the time. So if you're not in our service area and you contact us, that's fine. We can probably point you in the right direction as far as funding for projects, because there are great hubs all over the state, and we're just one of them. And you know, the Great Lakes Stewardship Initiative is probably one of the leading organizations in place-based education in the country, and has developed quite great standards for outside education and place-based education. And we try to make sure that schools where we work within the network kind of live up to those standards. So, and we're here to help you meet those standards. So we would love to work with you, but there's also, of course, our other hubs across the state.
I just wanted to say too that, you know, reach out to us too if you guys need any help with anything, brainstorming or how you can get your kids outside if you're trying to teach a certain standard. Just, you know, if you reach out to Jessica, she can put you in touch with me too if you need something, and I'd be more than happy to help you if I can.
One thing I wanted to mention, just in regards to like other organizations, the, you know, MAO, the Michigan Association for Outdoor Environmental Educators, is very a great source of information, as is the National Association, NAAWE, whatever, NAAEE.org, I think. So they're both great organizations. Someone just asked, like, you know, how to connect with people across the nation, and that would be one way. Thank you, Sally, for putting that in there.
All right, with our last minute or so, just to let you know that if you would like to receive sketches for this evening, the link was posted in the chat. I'm not sure if you've done sketches recently, but they've gone virtual, which is actually quite convenient. So go ahead and follow that link to fill it out, and you will get the 1.5 hours worth for today.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks to all of you for spending your time doing this. We know this is important to you, so take care and be well. Bye, everybody. Feel free to stick around for an extra minute if you have any more questions. Bye.
Have a good night, everyone.